All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started so that we can get you guys out of here on time on a Friday. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Leslie Charles. I am the Digital Integration Coordinator at Muskingum Valley ESC, and that is in Zanesville. And I work with a lot of great people, a couple of them who are on this call. Michelle Carlisle is on here. I'm going to admit a few more people, and Aaron Warren. And we are super excited because we have received this grant that allows us to do some of this tech coaching and provide some of these things to you guys free of cost. And so it's great to be able to do this and just connect with teachers and maybe help them figure out a different way of doing something that they've done a million times before, but maybe just do it a little bit different. So I always like to give you just a little bit of information about me personally. Like I said, I work at Muskingum Valley ESC. I have been there since 2002. So yes, it's going to be my 20th year at Muskingum Valley. And ironically, I've done this remote digital integration coordinator my entire span of time at the ESC. I did digital integration and remote learning before it was even a thing, before it was COVID, anything else. And at that time, most people didn't even know what that was. I've always been an advocate for online learning and using apps and tools to get your kids really interested in what's going on and trying to get them engaged in what we're doing. I know it's no secret that kids usually can navigate the tech world better than most adults. And it doesn't matter if they're a 4-year-old or a 24-year-old. It seems that they can figure it out if we let them, kind of play and kind of integrate with it. So I always have used technology to with my students, even when I wasn't at the ESC. So I love the fact that I am able to do this for you guys. So for those people who just came in, I think maybe it was just Laurel, not that it was just Laurel, but Laurel came in. If anybody else has not signed in, please do so with your first and last name in the chat box. One last time, I'll repeat this, that the Google form link is also there. So make sure you put in your information into that Google form so you can count this as one of your sessions. And also make sure that the Google Classroom code is also in the chat. So you can get onto Google Classroom afterwards if you happen to miss one. And then the last thing I wanted to tell you is that I know a number of you guys were interested in the graduate credit. I am an adjunct for Muskingum University. And so Muskingum University is a great partner of ours and they provide the graduate credit. If you have not reached out to me ahead of time, I do have the form. I will post that in Google Classroom later or have Michelle do that later. It's a pretty easy setup if you're wanting that. You have to fill out that form. I need to have that form with payment information by next Friday, and you need to do that through mail. It is $130 per credit hour for Muskingum. I think Michelle has Ashland possibly, and Michelle, if you want to unmute and say that, what that process is. But honestly, it's a pretty easy syllabus. You watch the sessions, we give you a reflection paper at the end. And as long as we have that stuff, you fill in your grade, turn in your grade 2 weeks after the end of the class, you're good to go. So I see that somebody said if we're paying by credit card, can we email today?
I was just getting ready to that had come up earlier today. And so I knew I needed to ask you, we have had a couple people ask if paying by credit card, they don't want to mail that. So I said to reach out directly to you.
Yes, and I will be in the office. I've actually been home on medical leave, but I will be in the office on Monday, and you can physically call the office, and I'll give my I'll put my phone number in the chat here in just a minute. You can call myself or you can call my secretary, Mary Archer, and then she can physically put that information down on your paper so you don't have to email it either. We want it to be safe process. But if you want to email that would be great. And then I just fill all that stuff out, I send it in, and then they'll issue you your grade. So it's a pretty easy process. I'll quickly put, while I'm talking about it, my phone number to the office in the chat. And I'm going to put my secretary's extension down along with her name. And she will take care of if I'm unavailable on Monday, which I'm kind of crazy on Monday when I get back from being off, but that way she can assist you if you need that. Okay.
And yep, and I'm going to go ahead and put the Google Class link in for you. If you are not yet in part of the Google Classroom, here's the join code. One caution, please join the Google Classroom from a personal Gmail, not your work email, because of the domain sharing. It's just easier if everyone joins the Google Classroom through a personal Gmail. It's not required, but that's where you're going to find all of the links to all of the recordings, the graduation or the graduate credit information, and other contact information. And I'll stop now.
No, that's absolutely fine. So if anybody has any questions throughout, Michelle has been great to jump on here. She'll probably be monitoring the chat for me. I'd like to give you guys an upfront. I am that person, like I came from an elementary background. I like things to be visual. One of the tips that I have for everybody that's connected is that one thing that I always tell teachers, I think that teachers feel like that they have to be, they have to create everything. They have to be the ones to do it all. And you know what? There are so many great things out there that every other person has thought about. Maybe there's ideas that somebody else has thought about and started a project. Don't be afraid to share and use other people's stuff, because I always put my stuff out there for free, because I think being able to share with other educators makes us very resourceful, and it makes us very good at time management. And that's one of those things that I feel like teachers feel like sometimes technology, it's supposed to be faster and it ends up costing them more time. My thing is to use what you find. And a couple of things that I'm going to be using in this session, I was going to create it, but I wanted to reach out there. I'm like, is there something that has already been done? So I'm going to share a couple segments from other people's YouTube videos. And I personally think that when you do that, you give them credit for that. I think it makes everything run pretty smoothly, and you can give them credit where it's due, and you can also save yourself some time as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to get started. Now, how many of you, actually, before I do that, how many of you, I know most of you guys have your videos off. If you turn them on for just a second, how many of you actually have a FlipGrid account? Okay, I see a couple. Shannon doesn't have hers on. I know Michelle has one. Let's see. Shannon, do you have a FlipGrid account? Okay. I don't know if maybe Marie says she does not. Okay. So for those of you who have a FlipGrid account, now here's my second question. How many of you actually use it for instruction? Okay. A couple people. Michelle saying no. And if you're like me, a lot of times you'll go to a lot of these workshops and you'll sign up for all of this stuff, but then you don't use it, and then you forget how to use it. So I will tell you that I used FlipGrid a lot previously. Now in my position, it's a little difficult to do that because I do a lot of online instruction like this. And with my kiddos, I kind of have to have them do it on their own time. So I have to rely on the teacher in the classroom. So I haven't been able to use it a lot lately, but I am a big proponent of it because there are so many ways you can use it. It's free, and that you can use it with literally any grade level and any subject level. If you can think about it in a different way, or if you can look on their website, I will tell you that there are places that people are ways that people are using it that you probably never even thought of, and they're using it and sharing it out there for you to use that too. So it's one of those things. I use it for PD, I use it for young kids, and I use it for my high schoolers. So it doesn't matter, you can use it for anything. So I'm going to, let me share my screen, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Now I do obviously have a PowerPoint with this, but I will put in the Google Classroom any of my resources. I will upload those. So don't worry about having to constantly write everything down. I will make sure that I give you everything because I want to make sure you can use it the next day and do anything with what I've used and or what I have and what anybody else has out there as well. So this is just kind of our housekeeping tips. I think I already talked about this. The Google Classroom, the Google Form, and then the FlipGrid. We're going to jump right into FlipGrid. So I'm going to start off with, for those of you who do not have an account, there's a few of you, and maybe those that are watching the recorded version that does not have a FlipGrid account, I want to share this portion of this video because I think this is a really good way to jump into what it is, what it does, and how it affects the kids in your classroom. So I'm going to share this and then we'll talk about it a little bit after I'm finished with this.
It is amazing to watch what kids will say to a computer screen that they won't say to a teacher. There's a level of honesty that comes out from kids. You see more of their natural side, or sometimes more of their personality comes out when they're making a video. It's very personal. A lot of kids who are timid to speak directly to a person will share all kinds of things on a FlipGrid. So to me, it's a tool that very easily lets kids have a voice and be heard with very little work on the side of the teacher other than asking the question and giving the space for that question to be answered.
One of the things that I think librarians have been in the vanguard about is using technology in authentic ways, not just for consuming, but for creating. The authenticity of video and voice really helps build community and relationships. And relationships are what it's all about. Learning happens best when there are relationships between the faculty member, the instructor, and the students, and among the students. It was Maslow that said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We've got a more powerful toolkit than ever before, and we can use it to create and make a difference in our worlds. So I want my students to go out there and model that in the K-12 environment, and I want their students to be able to create and participate in powerful ways.
I was looking for an application where I could use technology inside the classroom as well as outside of the classroom for students to speak their math thinking and then hopefully have other students follow their same process. So most recently in my classroom, I took the math practices and focused on perseverance and understanding problems. Each group then was responsible to record a response that was moderated by myself. So they didn't have the opportunity to see any other student responses on FlipGrid until I unlocked those videos. And students now have gone back into the FlipGrid app and are watching videos and filling out a feedback form. The application and the use of technology has allowed for me to break down the four walls in my classroom instead of being able to critique just the students in that particular class in those 45 minutes. I'm having students critique across the 95 students on my team. It allows the students to see that sometimes those regular lower level students, in terms of what their ability appears to be, they're actually communicating their process much better than the kids who get the math very quickly.
When we first created FlipGrid, we focused primarily on the interaction between teachers and students to amplify student voice. What we found is that teachers use the environment to share their best practices and stories with other teachers around the world.
It's been a tool that really helps students get their voice to the forefront. And it has really been something that's been a catalyst for bringing dialogue back into the classroom.
We're in the selfie generation. These kids don't mind looking at a camera and practicing their English over and over and over again. They actually have fun. I've had students who are really shy in the classroom. They really liven up in front of the camera.
We love FlipGrid. And the reason why is because it allows our students to express themselves in their native language, American Sign Language, and communicate with each other instead of having to type everything in English, which is their second language.
Now, FlipGrid has a really, really good, their website is really amazing. It's organized really well. It's a lot of videos that explain things. There's many tutorials. There's all kinds of resources and blogs where people are sharing what they did. And hey, I used it this way. Did you ever think about using it that way? And it really is a site that that I usually gravitate towards. Number one, it's very visually appealing. Number two, it's free. And who doesn't like free? It used to be at a cost. If you joined it when I did a while ago, before COVID, all that other stuff, there was a free version and then a paid version. Well, once that went, and I think Microsoft actually purchased FlipGrid, they made it free for everyone. So everything's free. There's you can't use this because it's locked because you don't have the professional version. And like I said, it really is used for all grade levels, for teachers, for anything. And so I really particularly gravitate towards that part where the teacher was saying how sometimes you have these kids who are struggling writing or reading, but they aren't afraid to get on and make a video and express how they feel. And it makes them feel just as smart and just as capable as everybody else in their classroom. And I think that's super powerful because we all have those kids in our classroom that are very reluctant to share things unless they feel like they're going to be shamed because their ability isn't up to the others in their classroom. Well, in this way, kids are all into the selfies and recording themselves and TikToks and all of these other things. Now, with that being said, you're probably thinking, well, what about the things that they shouldn't be saying? Well, there's a way that you can fix that as well. The only thing you have to do is when you're setting up your FlipGrid, you just make sure that you have it moderated, and then you don't have to worry about that. I think typically in the younger classrooms, we really don't have as many issues as maybe the older classrooms or middle school to older classrooms. But typically, everything has one of those exceptions where you have the student who doesn't follow the rules. You can catch that if you put that on, and you can catch it before it affects and disrupts your entire classroom. And so the fact that the kids can get on and express their feelings and do things with the video that they wouldn't be able to do with pen and paper, I think is super important. The last thing that I think is super easy about the whole thing is that kids could use their phone, they can use their Chromebook, they can use their iPad. It's virtually able to be used on any device that you want. And I think the ease of it, the simplicity of it, by using, if you can look on the picture here, just on this picture on the PowerPoint, it's as simple as big green plus signs and arrows. There's nothing that kids can't look at and figure out by just looking at the screen. A couple of things that I think they've made some good changes that they've made. Originally, when they had rolled out FlipGrid to classrooms, they had some terminology in there that I think kind of confused some adults, even some kids. They used to call groups in FlipGrids grids. And I think they understood that was a little confusing, but FlipGrid is easy to do. And I say it's like 1, 2, 3. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to create a group. And if you're thinking about it in terms of what is a group in FlipGrid, well, a group is just basically your classroom. So if you are a self-contained classroom and you teach, your math, your science, all of your subject levels in one, you might just want to have one group. But if you teach, multiple classrooms or groups of kids, you might want to have multiple groups. It's kind of how you feel works best for you. So you've got a group, you've got a topic. And if you think of a topic is like your activity, your writing prompt, your task. So you've got your classroom, your activity, and then the last thing is you have to share it to your students. And it's that easy. There's 1, 2, 3, group. That's your classroom, your topic, and then your share. So it's pretty easy, 3 steps, and you get that created. Okay, so I've got this written down. Like I said, I will share this with you. So don't worry about if you've not used FlipGrid. Don't worry about having to, I'm going to move my bar here. Don't worry about having to write this stuff down. I will share this onto the Google Classroom later. Step one, like I said, you create your group, and your group is your students in your learning community. Then you add your topics. Now, in the next little short video tutorial that I'm going to share, which goes step by step by step, it talks about all the various things that you can use for your topics. FlipGrid has gotten really good. It builds in everything right within your system. So you can link to YouTube, you can link to Vimeo, you can add your own photos in, you can put GIFs in, you can do all of these things. You can even upload a file. So let's say you wanted your students to read a short story and then give you a 1-minute video synopsis on what they felt about the story. You can upload that media or that script right into your topic, and everything is in one location. So they can read the story, then they can do their reflection or their synopsis of the story right within that same topic. So step 2 is to add your topics. And then 3, you share it out to your students. And you can give them, like I said, there's a way, which you'll see in the next video. You tell them how long you want their responses. You can, make it short, like 30 seconds, or you can, up that to like a couple minutes if you want to. You don't want to stagnate your students' creativity. Sometimes they'll bring in pictures and all kinds of things to use with that. And that's awesome that they're able to do that. But if you start getting where it's a lot of unproductive time that you're going to kind of have to weed through and to grade, then you set your limit. You have to know, get to your point within 30 seconds. And that way you can kind of, get them to get right to the meat of what they're trying to share. So there are lots of great tutorials on YouTube that give you step by step by step. Now, I know a number of you guys are taking this for grad credit. Like I said, I will post this whole video onto the link to this video onto Google Classroom for you guys to use, but she does a really good job. I was going to do this. And like I said, I went out there looking to see, and there is a 2021 FlipGrid tutorial, and she's done an amazing job. Now, I'm not going to show you the whole 20 minutes. I'm only going to show you the portion that I think that you need to know to get started. Okay. Now, if you get started after this session is over with and you go home and you're playing with it, you go ahead and create your account, and you're going and you're making your group, and you need a little more. Then if you go to our next one on Friday, I go more in depth with, okay, now you've got your FlipGrid account created. Now you know how to make a group and a topic. Let's get into the meat of it. Let's get some content for you guys. So if you want to join that one at 8 o'clock on next Friday, I will give you all kinds of ideas that you can use directly with your students the next day. So let's take a minute. Anybody have any questions before I share this little segment of this video for you? I don't think I see anything. Okay, and Michelle, if you're still moderating, if you see something, feel free to let me know, and I'll hit stop and address the question. So I'm going to turn. Did we have a question?
No, that was just me. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Thanks, Michelle. All right, so I'm going to share this, and then I'm going to stop it. Like I said, it's about, I think it's like 17 minutes long. We're not going to watch all that. I'm just going to show you the chunk that you need to get started with the FlipGrid.
Right now we're looking at the FlipGrid website. So to get here, I just opened up an internet browser and I typed in flipgrid.com. And this is the FlipGrid homepage. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see that there are 2 buttons that we're going to look at: Educator Sign Up and Login. If you're brand new to FlipGrid, you're going to want to click on the button that says Educator Sign Up. And if you already have a FlipGrid account, just like I do, you'll want to click on this button here that says Login. Now, there are 3 different ways that you could log into your FlipGrid account. If you logged in with Google when you created your account, you'll want to click on this button that says Google Login. If you logged in with Microsoft, you'll want to click this option that says Microsoft login. And then lastly, if you signed up for an account with an email and a password, you'd click this button here to log in. I logged in with Google, so I'm going to go ahead and click on Google login. So I'm all logged into my FlipGrid account here. You'll see that I have this welcome message. It says, welcome to FlipGrid. Let's get your first discussion created and started. First, create a group. Second, add discussion topics. Third, share the join code. So basically what FlipGrid is doing is they're outlining the 3 steps that you need to take in order to get started with FlipGrid. So the very first step here that says create a group, that step is all about creating a class for your students. So that's going to be a digital space where your students can have their FlipGrid discussion. Then the second option, discussion topics. This one is basically where students are actually going to be able to record their videos. So I like to think of FlipGrid discussion topics like activities, whereas a group is more like a class. Then lastly, we have the share the join code. So that's just how students will be able to join your FlipGrid class or your FlipGrid discussion topic so that they can get started. But we'll cover that one more in depth in a little bit. So what I'm going to want to do first is I'm going to click this button that says create a group. So now to create a group, we're going to need to add students into our class. So I'll click the next button and you'll see that I have some options here. So at the very top, I have the choice to actually change the cover image. So if I click on this here, you'll see that FlipGrid has these really fun cover images that I can choose from. Let's say I want to choose this one right here. This one's kind of fun and funky. You can also click on nature, people, textures, or you can upload your own image as well. So if you click on this use my own image, that's a cover photo that you can add. That's actually something that's saved on your physical computer. But for me as a teacher, I like to just choose one of these ones that FlipGrid has created for me. So now I'll click on this update cover image and you'll see that my class or my group in FlipGrid now has its own unique cover image. Now what I can do is I can add a group name. So I might title mine STEM class, since you guys know I'm a STEM teacher. And then under group status, you have 2 choices, active or hidden. My group right now is active, which means that students are able to respond to and comment on topics in my group. So since I'm wanting to use this with my students right now, I'm going to want to make sure that my group status is active. Next, it's time to add students to our class. So there's 3 different ways that you can add students to your FlipGrid. First, you can add their email addresses. So if your students have email addresses, that would be a really quick and easy way to add them to your FlipGrid class or your FlipGrid group. In the middle here, you can create usernames for your students. So if you're an elementary school teacher like myself, your students might not have email addresses, and so adding student usernames is a really quick and simple way to get students logged into your FlipGrid group. Then lastly, I love this option probably the most. If you are a user of Google Classroom, FlipGrid makes it really easy for you to connect your Google Classroom to FlipGrid. So you can just click on this button here and it will actually import students from Google Classroom into your FlipGrid group. I'm going to do student usernames just for today's example. So maybe I'll say EdTech student 1, and maybe I'll do their username as EdTech 1. Next, I'll add EdTech student 2, username EdTech 2. And then lastly, I'll add EdTech student 3, and their username will be EdTech 3. So you get the point. You can basically just upload student usernames one by one, or if you have a CSV file saved on your computer, that would typically be a class list that you have saved. You can upload that here, which would make it easy for you to import student usernames very quickly. All right, now if we scroll down below, you'll see that there's also some notification options for your group. So basically what this means is that as the teacher, you can choose to get updated about new responses and comments, either daily, weekly, every new video and comment, or never. For now, I'm just gonna go ahead and select daily since that's the option that's already on here for me. But that choice really is up to you as the teacher. However frequently you would like to get notifications about when students have added new posts or new comments. Then here, there's also the option to notify students. So if you would like for students to get email notifications for new responses and comments, you'll want to turn this option on. For me as the teacher, I don't want to overwhelm my students with email, so I'm going to keep this off. But you guys know your students and your classroom needs better than I do. So that choice is really up to you. So now that I've set up my class, you'll see again, I have given my class a cover image, I've given my class a name, I've made sure that the status is active, I've imported students, I did the student username option, you can choose between email or Google Classroom. I've set up my notifications and now I'm ready to go. I'm ready to create my FlipGrid group. To do this, I'll just click on the button that says create group. Now my group is ready to go. So this group, this unique number here is associated with my FlipGrid class or my FlipGrid group. So I can copy this link and I can share it with my students. I can either create a QR code for them to scan in my classroom. I could share this with students through Google Classroom, through Microsoft Teams. It's really up to you however you would like to share this group with your students. But this link here is going to be really important because that's how students will be able to access your FlipGrid. So I could copy this if I wanted and share it with students in a variety of different ways. So now we are looking at the teacher perspective of my FlipGrid class. So you'll see that this is my group or my FlipGrid class. By the way, you've probably started to notice this by now, but I am going to use group and class interchangeably throughout this video, just because that's how it makes sense in my mind as a teacher, that a class is also the same thing as a group. So at the very top here, you'll see that I have the option to add a co-pilot. A co-pilot in FlipGrid is essentially a co-teacher. So if you have a teaching partner, you'd want to click on this button here to add them to your FlipGrid so that they can also be a teacher within your FlipGrid group. Now let's scroll down here and you'll see that we have topics. If you remember from earlier, I said that topics in FlipGrid are the same thing as activities. So the first thing you'll want to do is you'll want to create an activity in FlipGrid, or you'll want to create a topic. So to create a topic, I'm going to press this button here that says create a topic. And now you'll see that I am prompted to start adding details for my FlipGrid activity. The first thing you'll want to do is you're going to want to add a title. So this is going to be the title of your FlipGrid topic. So I might add something like peaks and valleys. Then next it's time for us to add a prompt. A prompt is essentially like directions. So I might want to include something like record yourself sharing a peak and valley of your week. A peak is a highlight. A valley is a low point. Once you have recorded, submit your video and comment on 2 classmates' posts, for example. So my directions here again, I'm going to have my students record a video. They're going to share a peak and a valley of their week. Once they submit their video, then they'll be able to comment on 2 classmates' posts. So next here we can add a media resource. FlipGrid is awesome because it has the ability to work with a variety of other tools that are out there. So you can add multimedia elements to your FlipGrid topic. So for example, as the teacher, you could record a video where you actually model this for students. So I could actually record myself saying the directions, and then I could also record a video where I'm modeling what I want their responses to look like. So that's one reason why you might want to use this record a video option. You could also add a YouTube link or a Vimeo link. So for example, if you want students to watch a quick video and then share a reflection, you would want to add this media here, and then students could watch that video and then provide a video response with their thoughts. There's also some more choices. You can add an image, you can add a GIF, you can add emojis, you can add a link that's from Google Docs to your Google Drive. So if you click on that, you can insert a file link. You can upload a Kahoot link, Wakelet, Nearpod. So again, there's tons and tons of options for you to choose from. For the purpose of today's video, I'm going to add a GIF just because it's simple and easy. But again, there's lots of other ed tech tools that FlipGrid works with really nicely. So here I'm going to look up, let's say maybe mountain, since we're doing peaks and valleys. And I think that one's pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and add it. And you'll see that with this activity, students are just going to have this nice GIF of a mountain that they can look at while they're creating their response. Now I want to scroll down. So here you have the option to add a guest password. This is if you want families or maybe admin or other guests to actually be able to view your topic. For me personally, as a teacher, I'm going to leave this off because I only want my students to be able to access this activity. However, if you do want to share this activity with others, you can turn this on and add a password. Next, we have some other essentials. First, we have topic moderation. What this means is that only video responses and comments that you've approved are going to be shared with the rest of the class. So this one is really up to you and based on the needs of your classroom and your students. Personally, I like to leave my videos moderated. The reason for this being that I don't want other students in the class to see my students' work until I have actually approved it. Basically, if you don't want something to come through that you haven't approved, you're going to want to make sure that you turn this on. Now, there's a variety of reasons why you might want this to be off. If you're wanting it to be just a really quick activity where students post their work in class and they can all see each other's as soon as it's uploaded, that's one reason why you might want this to be off. Next, we have comments. So for this one, if you want students to be able to add comments on each other's responses, you're going to want to click on this option and either choose video and text, video, or text only. Video and text means that students are able to leave both video and text comments on each other's work. This one here, video comments only, means students are able to only leave video comments. And then this one is that students are only able to leave text comments. If you don't want students to be able to comment on each other's videos, you're going to want to press this option here that says none. For the purpose of today's video, I'm choosing none. But like I said, this is really up to what you want out of the activity or out of this topic with your students. Next, we have the recording time. So FlipGrid gives you a bunch of options and times that you can choose from. This recording time right now is selected on 1 minute and 30 seconds. That means that students have 1 minute and 30 seconds in their FlipGrid video. So they're allotted 1 minute and 30 seconds to actually provide their response to you as the teacher. This can be as short as 15 seconds and can go all the way up to 10 minutes. This really depends on the type of activity that you're doing with your students. If you're wanting them to record themselves giving a speech or maybe doing some sort of monologue, you might want this to be a little bit longer versus a short reflection prompt like mine can probably be done easily in under 45 seconds. Next, you can also add closed captioning. This is really great for accessibility reasons. If you would like to turn this on, you can go ahead and select your language. And now you'll see that we are pretty much set up. So I've added my title, I've added my prompt, I've added my multimedia here. I've chosen to not include a guest password, and I've also set up moderation, comments, recording time, and closed captioning. The last thing I want to point out before we create this topic is that you do have the choice to click on more options here, to add additional attachments, to change notifications. There's a lot of other things here that you as the teacher can go through if you would like to. For me, I don't find it to be super important for what I'm trying to do. And so now what I'm going to do, the last thing is you can choose to save these settings as your default settings if you would like. Now, this is up to you. For me as the teacher, I like to use FlipGrid in a variety of different ways. So I don't have this set up as my default settings, but if you would like to, so for example, if you never want students to be able to comment, you might want to set that up as your default settings so that you don't have to change it every single time. Now that I'm ready to go, I'm going to want to go ahead and press on this button here that says create topic. And you'll see that my topic is ready to go. Now, this specific link here is different from the FlipGrid group link. This is a specific topic link. So what this means is that I can copy and share this link to invite students to respond to my topic. So I have the choice if you're teaching in person and you want to do this activity live with students, you could share this with them on the board as a QR code and they can scan it and join this topic immediately. You could share this with students through Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, etc. You can also just copy this link and share it with students through your learning management system or however you normally have students join an activity or do an activity. Now that I'm ready to go, I'll press all set. And you'll see that my activity is created here. So down here below, once students start creating their responses, you're going to start to see them populate here. Right now we have 0 responses because 0 students have filled this out. If you want to join in on the discussion, you can record a response, and there's also a share topic button again for you to be able to share this with students. So now what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at the student perspective so you can better understand.
Okay. So I'm going to stop right there and give you guys just a second to kind of process. Now, I know that's a lot of stuff, but there is a lot of stuff that, you can go into all those little extra settings. You can manipulate all of that stuff, but by default, it makes it pretty easy. You create your classroom or your group, you create your topics, and the topics will be listed just right under your group. And it will be listed with whatever that icon is that you put for each one of your topics. And you can share them out multiple times. So it makes it really easy. Once you've got your stuff set up, then you can start sharing. Now, just a couple of things that I wanted to kind of step back to just to kind of clarify a couple of things. So first of all, when they were talking about adding the students, that is because the way she added them with the codes, I personally think that's a very easy way to do it. I also like to do it directly with the class or with Google Classroom. Like she said, that was one of her favorite things as well. If you're not real familiar with CSV files, they have a template. I don't know if you noticed that, but when they were talking about different ways to add your students, they even have a template that you can download. You put your students' names in and upload them. And then when you do that, it gives you literally step by step directions. They provide the template. The only thing you have to do is fill in your students. So if you want to do it that way, it makes it pretty quick. It uploads your kids. Then you don't have to worry about, having them type in every single time their course code or their course name in order to get in. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. The second thing I wanted to mention was the whole under the Essentials tab, when she was talking about the topic moderation. Personally, I think that's super important for a classroom teacher to have on. Now, if you have a pretty small class and you're doing it for like a daily check-in, or, she's doing peaks and valleys, that might not be as important for you to moderate, but I would say to err on the side of caution and moderate that. You never know what somebody's going to say or do. And you want to just make sure you're not caught off guard with that. So as a teacher, I'm always kind of that person that likes to make sure that I double check, not that they're going to do anything wrong, but double check that just to make sure. The other thing under that I wanted to mention was talked about the guest password. You can use that in multiple ways. So for example, a lot of times when I'm teaching students, I do a lot of teacher trainings through Zoom, but sometimes I do students, and I like to do FlipGrids for them. And so obviously I'm not going to know all their emails, or I'm not going to know it. So what I do is I provide a guest password, and that's an easy way for them to be able to access that and to give responses in video. And you don't even necessarily have to know those kids. And you can go over and quickly make sure that there's nothing that's inappropriate, and then allow that to share out so that other students can comment. Peer feedback is super important. It's amazing what things kids will pick up on, and how effective it is for those kids who are getting that peer feedback. They a lot of times will take the suggestions of a student over suggestions of a teacher, and really take that and make some quality changes with that. And then the last thing I like to just comment on is you can choose the way that people can give you feedback or give students feedback. You saw that there's a drop-down box. You can choose from text feedback, or they have to type it in. You can choose from video and text, or you could do video only or do none at all. I prefer to leave it on. Just my experience with it, I like to use video and text to give the kids that option. Some kids are very, have no issue. Like most kids don't have any issue sharing things through video. Some have more confidence in writing, and that's okay. But if you give them that option to have both, that's pretty good and pretty easy for those kids that aren't as great at the writing portion of that. So it makes them feel a little bit better that they can explain it rather than write it out and have to, you know, maybe they have misspellings or whatever that make them feel a little uncomfortable. So those are kind of the main things that I always like to talk about. Now, she gets into the talking about the student side, and this one is really just a 101, how to get signed up, how to create your group or your classroom, and how to create a topic. If you get those things finished, you guys are well on your way to using this for instruction. If you are still not so sure, I challenge you to get on there, create your group, and create a couple topics. Now, within Google Classrooms for this particular session, I am going to put a Google or a FlipGrid link in there. You don't have to comment, or you don't have to get on there and do a FlipGrid, but certainly feel free to do that, because I think it's very helpful to get your feet wet, act like you're a student, and then you get yourself into, oh, it's not that difficult for me to do this. And so I will put that in Google Classroom as well. It may not be up there till Monday, but I will provide that within the Google Classroom for this particular one as well. So I've kind of talked a lot of time. I've had other people talk. Anybody have questions for me? Because we have about 10 minutes. I want to make sure that I get a chance to hear your thoughts if you have questions. And then I will have you go ahead and type in your first name and last name again in the chat box again before we leave. So anybody have questions, feel free to unmute your video and let me know.